his wife and his girlfriend then, and sometimes not. So it was a nice compliment.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. Appreciate it. So
Yeah.
thanks for sharing with me.
We got a great review for our podcast.
Indeed. We welcome more always.
I know. Bring them on. We'll take them.
Yes, indeed.
This is the newsstreamingnetwork.com, WGSN-DB Going Solo Network Radio, TV, and podcast #1 Internet Singles Talk Network. And this is Let's Talk Dating with Christine and Barry. Hi, Barry.
Hi, Christine.
So I think this is a subject that not everybody will admit that they feel, and they don't even know the answer for sure. So today we're going to talk about what scares you about getting close. I don't know what overday means. Hey guys, did you notice the overday? I don't know what that means.
We'll get to it.
We'll, sure. Note from our producer. So I think sometimes people want to blame the other person. Oh, you put her name at the top.
We didn't even notice.
Are we so dense? Thank you for pointing it. I love it. I didn't know what an overday was, but I think you meant overlay, and I had no idea what that meant either. I love it. Oh, it looks beautiful. Thank you, Cece. Now we're even more official. I know I have to get into those QR things like Barry has and get with the program here. I'm so behind the times. So, what scares you about getting close? I think often people will want to blame it on the other person. Oh, they're being avoidant and they don't want to make a commitment. But you can't do anything about the other people. You have to really start with yourself about, well, what do you think might be your part in that? Or why would you pick somebody like that? Or why would you stay with somebody like that and keep trying to make them change, right?
It is an interesting thing, because a lot of people do, in fact, pretend they're fine and, of course, project all their shortcomings or fears onto the other person. But the truth is that even if you do that, you're still oftentimes in a place where you're holding back and not wanting to be close. So we may be talking to you, you know?
Yes. So whether you think this might be you or you think it might not be you think it's only the other person, we'll see how much you learn in our conversation today. So generally, what would make sense is if I was to say, gosh, what scares me about getting close, a really logical thing is that I would get hurt, that my heart would get hurt, that my mind would get hurt, that I could physically get hurt. And for women, that is a high concern, that we could physically, emotionally, mentally get. Oh, there's Miss Gigi. She says, oh, yes, there's my Barry. I have to come out and see him. That you need to be concerned about being hurt. Nobody likes getting hurt.
No. I mean, for men, it's interesting because there is definitely part of it where we don't want to be hurt. But I think there's another one too that I've noticed. I don't think just me, but I think it's other men too. Is this the fear of making the wrong choice? It's a thing about us that we want to, because again, we talked about this masculine feminine stuff before, but for us men, we generally be goal oriented, so we want to aim for the target, and of course we want to do the best we can. And I hate to put the overlay on top of dating, but it is kind of the way our brains are wired, the way we function. So there is definitely the temptation when we go out is to always find the best choice out there, the most likely possibility, whatever the criteria is we use personally. So it's not like the best one in the room, because each person has a different viewpoint. So it's not saying all men have the same choice. But the thing is, individually, we will look around and we tend to pick the one we're most attracted to. But the thing is, we don't know if it's the best one sometimes. So there's a fear of getting close that we might commit to something that we may regret committing to later on.
Yeah. Yes. You like succeeding. You like reaching your goal. It's a very male, masculine. So the women that run companies have this same sense about them, and they get in very directing, pursuing mode when they're on a date, and they have the same feeling. And the higher priority to them is often reaching the goal and getting their purpose. And then later they'll think about, oh, they could be hurt. But a person that's more in their feminine, and I have coach same-sex couples, that the guy that's the more feminine one is often very concerned about getting his heart hurt, sometimes physically hurt. And so I think that's a really overall overarching thing of what will keep people holding back because they're afraid about getting hurt. Yeah.
Absolutely. Sorry, you were going to say something? I didn't want to jump in on your last thought.
I'll just take a breath. Go ahead.
The thing that I've talked about this before. I think we talked about this before about how, you know, there's this quote talking about, I mean, Eleanor Roosevelt's quote is saying, you know, what you think of is none of my business. That sort of idea. And so, in the context of this, I feel like there needs to be said that what we get afraid of getting hurt is because we start investing and we start putting energy into this person, and we feel like by doing that we need something back, or we need to have something on the other side, so that we've got some level of balance that we're paying out, we get back somehow, you know. And so that corresponding exchange, if it doesn't work, can feel very wounding, because like we've overextended ourselves to the other person, and we've invested, in quotes, our energy and our time and our love with this person, and they don't give it back. We feel hurt by that.
Mm-hmm. And then what happens is we like wait for them, who's waiting for us, who's waiting for them, who's waiting for us. And then nobody does anything, which is really sad. So often we either move really fast without enough information, or we hold back without enough information about whether or not the other person is holding back too. Mm-hmm. So I just had this conversation this morning with somebody about, because he had met somebody, and then for a bunch of really good reasons, they stopped seeing each other, and now they're reconnecting. And it seems like I'm only talking to him. He's more excited about it than she is. And so we had to talk about that because he's concerned. He's been really doing a very good job listening to himself, concerned about moving too quickly, and how does he do that? So I said, one of the ways I tell people is, if you're just starting out brand new with somebody, your emotions need to be a 0. It has nothing to do with who they are or how worthwhile they are. It's your commitment to them, your feelings about them, your future thinking, because that's what starts raising the number. And then you say, what do I need to learn about them? What do they need to say or do? I'm curious questions do you ask to get them to a 1, which means you want to see them again. And that's all it is a 1. Because what happens is, sometimes with a profile, oh my God, we have so much in common, and look how cute they are. And we even talked on the phone, and they have this great voice. And now we're a 35 without any real verification about why that might be okay or maybe not so okay. So it's really been fascinating that we decided he's now a 2.5, because they're going to get together on Sunday.
Right.
And what does he need to hear, feel, see her do, hear her say, to even move the other half to a 3? Because he admitted he was at a 28. And I said, it's normal and natural. And what we need to do first is admit, where in the heck are we? Because either we move too fast and often get hurt because we didn't pre-qualify them, and they really sometimes didn't do anything wrong except not go as zoomy as we did, or we hold back and we could really miss out on something wonderful. Absolutely. Because we kept not even being a 2 or even a 2.5. If it were really a 2.5, let's be it. So it was really fun talking about the numbers with him. He really got it.
Yeah, that's a good way of doing it, because we like having, you know, metrics.
He's a math guy too, so it was really helpful.
No, because I think I was just reflecting back that I've been on quite a few first dates over the last year or two through matchmaking services, because I tend to be a catch for the matchmaking people, because they use me as their vet to vet out, you know, their dates or their clients.
You're such a good person for that.
Well, thank you. It's been interesting, but I've had to also train the matchmakers, because they sometimes don't get what I'm asking about or what I'm saying to them. So I have to sometimes have 2 things going on. One is the person I'm with, but also how they get put with me and what the matchmaker did, which is a whole other conversation for another time. But the thing has been also is that the women I've met have, just checking before I say exactly, none of them have been like, got my excitement up to be wanting to get close. They were all nice, they're all fine, but they're interesting because it's almost where I get to the point where I'm so not attached to being close that I'm like, anybody out there? That's the other side of things, and so sometimes I want to speak to this too about this, about getting close, is sometimes it's just, I want to say boredom is the wrong word, but it is that sense of not having juice and excitement about the date in the first place. So you don't want to be so pulled back that there's no play involved, no joy involved. I did have a date a couple of years ago that was through a dating app. That's right, it wasn't through a date matchmaking, through a dating app, and the chemistry was very strong, and we only went out once, which just tells you right away what happened. But it was all, the chemistry was so exciting, it was so much fun, and it was very flirtatious. But then we started talking about values and common grounds and other stuff. And it's like the chemistry didn't go away, but I knew for myself I wasn't to act on it, because I knew that would be a mistaken approach, and probably for her too. So I know how important it is to keep the expectations, and as you said, like the numbers lower to start with, so that way you get to know the details before you enter the on conversation, because you don't want to get hooked up. We talked about this before about, rushing in because you get so excited about the person, then you discover later on they're a total opposite for you, and somebody views it won't work.
Boy, you've really run the gamut, because it's kind of nice to find out, oh, that part of me is still alive. How exciting is that? Oh, it didn't go away, or it didn't atrophy from lack of use, because we wonder, generally nothing goes away.
Right.
But we wonder if it hasn't happened, if we haven't gotten juiced up about somebody, because it's nice to go, oh, wow, I really can still feel that way. Good to know. And because because you were really educated about this, for somebody who isn't, they want to act on it because it's been so long. And we often, the whole connection, I want to feel a connection, negates the climbing the number part, where they just want to jump faster without really finding out, as you did, is there any more to this? This is so fun and exciting. And there has to be the substance as well as, geez, I can't wait to have your clothes off. So
right.
We like that too, but it can't just be that.
Yeah.
And there's people you meet and you go like, oh, I like them so much. Yeah, it's not going to go more though. I mean, you just know that too. This guy today has had 2 dates like that recently, and he really liked them and they really liked him, but it was like, and especially if you guys, you really know, he just knew it wasn't going to happen. And I was really proud of him that he at least tried, but he was super honest with them. And I love when people, first, you just need to be so honest with yourself, which is the thing that you're doing so transparently on all these podcasts, that women go, men don't do that. Well, yeah, listen to Barry. He does it all the time. Because I hear it from my male clients all the time, but it's not recorded for the world like you are so nice to do it. And if you approach a date as a woman, because this is what I do, men are very transparent to me. Good guys who, there's a reason I'm sitting across the table from them, because I wouldn't be if they weren't a good guy. Right. To really talk about, well, where are you and what's going on and how are you doing? And I told you that there was a guy a while ago that we were having these, and I said, I'm never doing it, not this way again, that how are you now that we're together again? And how are you during? And how are you after? I mean, I had just gotten very excited about that. And I am not going to have a relationship with anybody without that again. Because even though there were times when we were not quite on the same sync, and you're kind of like, oh, it was just so refreshing to always know, this is where I stand. I'm saying it out loud so I hear myself. And then you're saying yours back to me. Because there was lots of times we were on the very same place. And even when we were off, it was like, oh, I get that. And it's so not personal. That's the other thing that gives you permission. So it showed me about a even more new and improved way to be close with somebody in that place that feels really scary to a lot of people, to say your truth and listen to their truth and not get all upset and take it personally. Oof.
That is, yeah, it's such a key. It's I'll say this another way. I'm trying to pull for an analogy that fit, because the thing about it is it's really nice to be able to wrap up to the relationship from a place of just like checking all along the way, like pre-flight check, for example. Yeah, it's like, or when you get in the car, it's like, make sure you get your keys, your phone, and everything else. Like having your ducks in a row first, sort of thing. to know what you're looking for and to be clear. So meet somebody, you don't rush in ahead of time. You just go, okay, this is interesting. Let's see where it goes. It's like next step and then next step and next step. And it's interesting. There was, this comes out of back in my mind when I was in my master's program. We talked about this little teaching tool they used. And it was the idea about how it's important to take baby steps in a lot of ways. They had this demo where we talked about if you had a, no, I'm not going to explain the whole process. It's too much complicated. But simple things we learned very clearly that trying to shoot for the moon, you might get there once in a blue in like a million times, but you really will not get there. But to throw like steps to build up to get there, so you can get there eventually, is much easier. And I think for dating, it's the same idea. When you go out with somebody, it's good to like build those, is to create the building blocks and add steps along the way, so you get to know them more and more. So you build a foundation that's strong. Because the first one builds trust, but secondly, it makes it safer for you, so that when you know it works, you can move forward. But if it doesn't work, you know you've built some foundations you can walk away from.
Yeah.
So it's good to have that foundation to start from.
And to celebrate each one of those steps as a win, because that's the other hard thing, that if you zoom to 25 right away, you have not a lot of room for maneuvering. Right. And I said one of the really hard things about going to 25 right away is the odds are kind of good that it might not work out, because you don't really know much about this person, you know, and the odds of it being the person is pretty small. I mean, I'm very optimistic and hopeful. And I tell people it takes patience and persistence. There was a third one. I can't remember the other P. Practice. Patience, persistence, and practice. Yes. And so if you keep celebrating that each thing is a win, but if you zoom to 25 and it doesn't work out, now you fall 25. Where truly, if you solidly am a 1 and I'm solidly a 2 and I'm solidly a 3, and it doesn't work out because now you find out the next thing and you're like, oh gosh, that doesn't work for us. It's a much slower drop. So you don't get as discouraged and as disappointed and feel as rejected. And because if you keep doing this great big swing, that's when people just give up. It's terrible.
Yeah. The emotional toll is so high, absolutely.
And people go, does that mean I'm supposed to go, you know, at a really slow pace? I said, I want you to go at your pace. I just want you to touch on every number. You could do 3 numbers in one date. If you are willing, this is the thing, you have to be willing to be this revealing and ask these very revealing questions. Both sides, they're like, oh, I have to say stuff. And you have to listen to them, and you have to be willing to ask these questions. They're like, oh, I said, this is why I say take a while. Take a while. It's perfectly fine. You could take 3 dates to get to the next number because you don't really want to ask this next question. Okie dokie. But when you ask that question, you'll now know, am I ready to move to the next number? So I've had people who've moved really fast, but not very many. Salespeople are much more brave about asking the hard questions.
Of course, they want to get to the close. That's the whole point. Yeah, absolutely.
And they're used to no's. They know there's no's that are not a huge thing. It just means there'll be a yes soon.
And they won't feel the rejection because they're trained in that. Handling the no's with grace. Absolutely. The thing I was going to say is also, and this can sound like a really silly question, is like, what's the rush? You know, yes, you may have been through a couple of marriages, a couple of many relationships, and feel like the top clock's ticking. However, it's worth taking the time, a few weeks, a couple of months, to get to know somebody before you put all your eggs in one basket, so to speak. It's okay to take the time, because frankly, a relationship worth doing is worth doing well, sort of thing. Same as any job. So why not, as you said, take the time and build those numbers slowly and smoothly at your own pace? I fully agree with that.
And the thing that I have learned personally, and then watching my clients, is you continually get to learn about yourself. Gosh, what am I willing to ask? And what am I willing to reveal? And how do I feel today? You know, I didn't get enough sleep last night. I'm really not ready for a heavy conversation. And that's the kind of thing you get to tell this person that you're experimenting on how to have a more open conversation. Could we just be funny and lighthearted? Sure. I mean, I had those conversations. It was lovely because they were like, yeah, even if they were in a fine mood, they were fine matching with me. And then they knew they could say, I can't. You know, I really am not up to this. Could we do this? And oh, yeah, absolutely. Because gosh, they were honoring of me and they did it. So how nice that I can do that for them. And I will say it again, because we're getting close to our commercial. So many people say out loud to me, I really want to be in a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And without taking a breath, I really don't want to date.
We'll break that one down soon after the commercial break, for sure.
We'll be right back after our commercial about our wonderful station. And we're back talking about what scares you about getting close. Oh. And so I closed before the commercial with saying, because I've said it so many times. I really want to be in a relationship and I really don't want to date. And you brought up matchmakers, Barry. Even a matchmaker expects you to go on a date or 2 or 3.
That's how they refine their choices for you as well. So even if you don't go on a date, how are they going to help you get what you want anyway? So yeah.
I know. So if you go on a date with an attitude about what are you going to learn about yourself and what are you going to learn about the other person, and those are the only 2 goals you have initially, and then by the end of the date, the 3rd goal is, do you want to see them again? Because it needs to be 2 yeses to want to see each other again. And no other expectations than that. It's amazing how much stuff you'll learn about yourself and another person. And if you keep approaching every person you meet for the first time and then each subsequent meeting after that with, what else do I need to learn about them? What else do I need to reveal to see what they think about me? And does that entice me to see them another time and another time and another time? I mean, when this happened with my late husband, I was like, this is the way to do it, because I hadn't really experienced it exactly that way before. And it was really nice. It felt so relaxed, and getting close didn't feel scary because I was able to go at my own pace. That then generally, for those reasons, you won't feel scared.
Right. And it is, again, it's that pacing stuff. But I want to bring up a bigger topic on the table, because I'm noticing something we haven't talked about yet, which is some people are afraid of getting close because they haven't healed their past wounds from being burnt before. So one of the things we haven't talked about, but we've talked about in other shows, is about doing the inner work, about being healed before you enter into the relationship arena once again. And so some people, unfortunately, have this thing about not the other ways. Like they want to be in, usually want to be in a relationship, they don't want to date. Some people just want to date and don't want to be in a relationship. It's like that way too. And so, for some people, they want to like get back on the horse sort of thing, get back on the ride and do it again. It's like, hold up before you do that. If you are fearful about getting close because you have emotional wounds, heartbreak, distress from past relationships, past dating experiences, it's very important to face those and deal with those in a way that is healing and whole before you move forward to the next one, because you might start painting that new possible date with the same brush and they end up losing out and you lose out with them because you don't get what you want. So I'm very passionate about having people, my clients especially, do the inner work where they're really resolved and healed, so that way the past relationships don't impinge on their future prospects.
So important. And it could be not even just your past romantic ones, even though certainly look at that, romantic relationships, marriages, your past dating, but also your family. I mean, how your attachment, it's such a big thing that you and I talk about, attachment styles. It's formed when you're a little kid. And are you the kind of person that thinks they're going to leave at any moment, or you feel like they were never around anyway, or gosh, everybody's trustworthy? I mean, that could not be great either, because there's lots of people that aren't. So to figure out what is your style, what's the way that you approach relationships? How do you make friends? How do you interact with your birth family? How do you interact with families of choice people? And then how have you interacted with your romantic relationships? Because being afraid is a really okay thing, because it might be that you don't have good radar to keep you from being with somebody who will on purpose hurt you, who really isn't right for you. So I'm not saying stop being afraid at all. I'm just saying, look at what the reason is. Is it because you don't have good filters, you get attached to the wrong kind of people, that you don't feel very capable of vetting them, that you are too much holding back? I mean, look at what your style is. Even in friendships, I've had people really look at, well, how do you deal with your friends? And they're like, oh, yeah, there is kind of a thread.
It's amazing if we just look at things with a clear, unattached lens, how clear things get and how understandable things are. And the thing is, and it's I mean, it's something that's very so amusing because we're kind of, it's so obvious when you look at it from this better perspective. But for so many people, they're blind to it because they want to do the next thing and they want to keep like tucking it under the rug sort of thing, that are ignoring it rather than doing the actual reflection needed. And like attachment is one of those things we talk about in attachment styles. It is important to recognize that, are we afraid of getting close because we're afraid we're afraid of getting close, period, because that's our natural style? Or are we afraid of getting close because we're so anxious to get the relationship, the love we want, we're afraid it's the wrong one? Mm-hmm. That's the thing, is having a secure style, which is what I am, which is half the population for those people who are curious to know, basically means that I don't have either one of those as a primary thing. It happens, but they're not my primary respondent mode. So that having a more centered approach makes it easier to move into checking things out and get to know somebody without getting scared or being worried about getting close. Mm-hmm. So, as you said, like knowing what it is that you use, for want of a better word, as a modality or an approach to dating, it's good to know what tools you're using, because you might be using either old-fashioned things that don't work anymore, or ineffective tools that you had learned when you were very young, or simply just that you don't have conscious, adult, wise skills to approach dating in the first place. So it's good to check in with somebody who knows, like we do, what are useful ways to approach dating in the first place.
Yeah, we could certainly help them suss it out, because all we need to do is ask the right questions. That's what I find, that people really have all those answers inside of them. They just didn't know the questions to ask themselves. So that's what you and I do, talking about, well, tell me more about what's happened in the past, and then what happened with that, and how did you feel about it, and what happened next. I mean, we so recognize the pattern as they say it out loud. And it's funny how they haven't always put it together into such a succinct, and they go, oh, I see that now too. I mean, that's really fun. I don't even have to point it out lots of times. They get it once I've asked enough of the questions. That's been really fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that often we're trying to fulfill this lack that we had when we were growing up with a new person without really finding out, is this the right person for me? Because if we haven't had the right person, then we don't really even know what the right person is. We just know we want opposite of that, which isn't necessarily even the right thing either. And so I think that makes people very fearful, because they're like, well, how am I going to ever make the right decision? It's all very scary.
Right.
Yeah. I think the wrong decision is definitely one of the big neon signs that pop up in front of people about dating specifically, and starting opening your heart. And then I'm going to say out loud, those people that tell me, I wear my heart on my sleeve. You know where I was going to go with that. And I said, whoever made our bodies did not do that. Our heart is way tucked inside of our chest behind these big old rib cage. And so please put it back there and let somebody earn the right to have access to it. It shouldn't just be out there flapping around on our sleeve.
No, that is not the way of approaching it. The thing, and again, just referencing the attachment style for a second, people with their hearts in the sleeves are basically are the anxious attachment styles, because they really want love and they're desperate for it and they're worried about it, and they're not in the best place to attract a healthy relationship. So of course they're going to start being scared of getting close. So I guess the way to say is, if you listen to my talk and watching us and you have these questions come up your side, what has been your past experience with dating, and what has been your feelings? Do you feel like you want to be with somebody when you know it's not going to work and you back away? Or is it where you've been so fearful to approach in the first place that you don't know what to do with yourself? This topic is, we were just touching, the tip of the iceberg sort of thing about the whole piece of this. But the key thing to understand is that dating can be very easy and fun and playful and definitely rewarding when you do it the right way. The key thing is do you approach dating from a place that is inquiring and exploring, rather than desperation or fear driving you? Because that's the key that comes into play.
So intensity in the beginning of any sort should be a very good clue, right, Barry?
Indeed.
Drawn to them, repulsed by them, anxious, scared. I mean, pay attention, because it's something inside of you saying, we need to talk about this. We need to work on this, because getting into a relationship, I learned, is a process, and that even the little bumps and the like, I have more questions, were so easy, and effort is not the right word. It didn't feel hard. I can say it didn't feel hard. There was still effort put forth on both sides, but nothing was hard. And then it kept moving forward, because there were times when one of us could have said, yeah, no, thank you. But it kept moving forward. And that was the part that I went, oh, look at how this is. So I had the same conversation with the person before this guy this morning about, they go, how do you know all this? I said, because I lived every single thing I teach. I've taken seminars and read books and, lots. But so much of it, I've learned new things, but so much of it is confirmation of, yeah, I learned that the hard way. And it didn't, sometimes it felt like the hard way, but I learned on the job training is really how I feel. Because I'd go, this isn't working. What should I try? I'm going to try something different. What could I do differently? And I'd stumble around and try a bunch of things that didn't work for me, but I sure found a lot of things that might work for other people, because even though it didn't work for me, I hear that you say the same thing. And I think that's one of the reasons that people really like talking to us, because we have very real world experience and empathy, because we're like, oh, I was there. I know how that feels.
We are not speaking from textbook theory. We are going from experience and practice ourselves. Absolutely.
For sure. For sure. Yeah. It was funny. I had to take my car in to get the oil change this morning, and it turned out I melted my blinker bulb, but it wasn't me. It's this weird thing that happens to these plastic bulbs he was explaining to me from China. But the thing that cracks me up, because he's been doing this since he was a teenager and now he owns his own place, that he just knew off the top of his head. Yeah, and they had to take my tire off to get up underneath to get it. And I'm like, oh, I'm so glad I went to somebody that already knows all of that. I just thought the bulb burned out. I could tell it because I looked and there was no light in that little thing that it's in, the little case. The headlight was on, but not the little thing. But I was like, I don't have to know. I'm going to go to somebody that knows and they'll explain it to me. And that's how I feel about this, that you bring us something and we go, let me tell you, I understand this thing completely. How often does that happen, right?
I like the analogy. It's an interesting leap from one to the other, but it works really well.
You know me. You can count on me to bring up some obtuse thing.
Absolutely. But that is the thing, in the sense is that, this is a philosophical piece I'm going to drop, because you just said it the way you did, and I want to put it another way, is that so many of us, when it comes to our computers or our cars, we'll go take it to someone who's an expert and get it fixed that way, because we don't know what to do with it and what's wrong with it. When it comes to dating, we don't seek help from anybody else. Isn't it more important than your car or your computer? So this point we're bringing here, it's kind of clear that, we're 60, 70 episodes we've done. We know quite a bit of stuff. And so even in this area about dating and getting close, there are nuances and skills that we teach you and we stress that you can hopefully use for yourself. But if this doesn't work, or you've got other questions, doesn't mean that our podcast is the only way you can reach us. We'll talk at the end about how you can reach us, of course. But I want to make the point that we're doing this as a service, but also we want to make sure that you get the value and the results you want in your dating experience. Because frankly, dating is something that can be fun and easy, as I said earlier, but it can also be lots of pratfalls and tripping over and making mistakes too if you don't know what you're doing. So it's good to get help.
Yes, because the other thing I hear a lot is, doesn't everybody just know how to date? No.
Oh.
Yeah. The two people I talked to earlier were guys, and it was funny because one of them's told their friends and one of them hasn't. Because the one that hasn't, he said, they all think they know better, and they're the ones that have been single forever. I go, I know.
There you go.
I said, you're the smart one that said, I want to learn how to do this differently. But the one who told him said the same thing, and he loves calling me his coach. Because he said, you have coaches for things like, one of them has a golf coach and one of them has a soccer coach. And I'm like, yeah, it's the same thing. I know the rules of the game. I know the ways to do end runs. I really can do some sports analogy, not a lot, but a little, to say you don't just automatically know this. You go and learn a sport why wouldn't you come and learn this? Because people get so afraid, it's because it's your heart. It is important. And it's why they get jumped to the numbers so high, because it's so important. So if it's really so important, could we translate it over to, oh, you might want some advice? Oh, some advice. Makes sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, the things, if you get back to the title, you know, what scares you about getting close? If you keep getting scared every time you go on a new date and a first date, that's a sign, that's an indication that maybe something needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
And for most of us, I mean, I did for myself for many years myself. I didn't get a coach or guide for myself. I would just blunder into the next one and try the next one on, and like, but I didn't necessarily do anything different each time. That was my own learning the first time. Was just like, well, it must be her, not me. So I keep changing, you know, who I was dating. But the thing was, I learned, thankfully, along the path that I needed to check out what was going on inside of me in the first place, and that changed my whole dating paradigm. And like you, and a lot of study, a lot of books, teachers, lots of life experience for sure. Yes, we do speak from experience. It isn't theory we speak from. And I've learned so much along the way. And so my dating, and it's interesting because, like, again, the recent dates I went on, the ones through the matchmakers, thankfully, as far as I could tell, none of the last three I went out with had any fear about getting close. But then we didn't get close anyway in the conversation. It's first dates only. But what I also noticed is that the energy they bring forward is more, you know, being more mature is one of these things, because they're a bit older. But at the same time, I can still see the tentativeness inside. I can still see the uncertainty. And so, and that's one of the rules, by the way, when I go on dates for the matchmakers, I don't offer advice or counsel to the client. I'm there as a date. That's it. So, and they often ask what I do, but I don't promote it to them, because that's one thing I won't do either. But I just noticed that I'm getting more sensitive in my experience, just being witness to what other people are going through, what women are going through. And so it's one reason I'm talking about this, because I want to make sure if they don't hear it directly from me, maybe they'll listen to the podcast and get it that way.
Yeah, because I do too. I mean, even though I wear hats a lot, I leave my coach hat at home when I go out on a date. And as you and I both said, that what's really important to us when we're sitting across the table from somebody in a personal situation, because we have done so much inner work, it's so essential that the person across the table from us do as well. That is a huge criteria for me to want to see them a second time. And it's been interesting because the last three people, the last guy I just met the other night, fascinating guy. He came from the valley to come take me to dinner.
Wow.
I know. I said, really? Okay. He said, I would not imagine going out with somebody who hasn't been to therapy. And I said, I feel the same way. It was such a fun conversation. Yeah, it was really, it was a really fun conversation. Yeah, we'll see. But
and by the way, I want to say, by the way, if you're not living in LA, you don't know how far from the valley to the Orange Counties. That's a long way.
It's a long way. We had made plans for earlier, and then when I went to go put the appointment in my calendar, my client had moved hers to later, the one I was scheduling after. So I called and I said, oh my gosh, I can't come till later. He goes, well, that'll probably make the traffic better. And he said if he'd come earlier, he looked, it was been 3.5 hours and he was still going to do, I know. But it turned out to be only an hour and a half when he came later in the evening. Yeah, we closed the restaurant. He didn't get home until like midnight or something. I don't know. But it was so, gosh, how nice as a woman that a man's willing to drive for such a long ways. And it was so fun to keep getting so clear, because I've been shifting my 3-4 things, because I have a whole list, but I keep moving my top thing up, and this became my top thing. And all of a sudden the last 3 men have talked about therapy. And I was like, okay, Christine, you're walking your talk. Because that lady asked me that yesterday. Do you walk your talk? I said, oh, please. Yes. Oh, yeah. Yes. Geez, I know there's some people that are coaches that aren't, but I can't imagine, because I coach what I live. I coach what I know works. I tell everybody I have my 3rd wedding invitation hanging on my refrigerator from a client. I mean, we know what works. We have a good track record. So why wouldn't we use it? That'd be really silly, huh? But it's because we've used it already and now we teach it. Yeah.
Right. And that is the thing. Also, the dating experience is always interesting, because No, I'll save another time because it's like in the whole diatribe about things that aren't working. But getting into the topic, I'll stay on topic for the wrap.
You send it to me and I'll add it to our subjects for next month.
I will definitely do that. Yeah, the recommendation here is the thing that is the percentage. How to say the magnitude of fear compared with the magnitude of closeness that you have is an indicator. If you can understand how to get close in a way that is safe and is comfortable and is freedom based rather than fear based, so you don't increase your fear as you get closer, then you're in the right place. And if you are finding that we get closer you get, the more fearful you get, that's a clue that you might want to do some work, because frankly it's not worth getting that close to be that fearful and that scared. It's straightforward enough.
And certainly, I've mentioned this a few times, that both my male and female clients tell me one of the sexiest, appealing things about the other person is when they feel self-confident. And scared makes us feel weak generally. All of our blood goes to the middle and away from our extremities, and we feel weak. We don't feel as powerful. So I think we always should pay attention to something that makes us scared. Maybe style that with, does it make you a little nervous or a little more nervous? And when you really do get scared, why? And is it them? Could be. Did they do something inappropriate? Did you just feel some energy? You're like, oh, because I'll tell you, there's times I would know when I first started using online dating, I just read their profile that was perfectly fine, and my insights, and I'd say, never know it. So I never had an awful date, and I just believe that's why, because it didn't happen very often, but I would be so strong. Or is it you? Is it that, oh gosh, they're being really nice, and do I deserve somebody being that nice? Or gosh, they're coming on kind of strong, but I could have some boundaries about it, and let's see how they feel about those boundaries. Will they honor them? And how do we keep it regulated inside of us so that our strength comes back, that we don't lose our power by being so afraid? Pay attention.
Absolutely. One of the things that I'll add to that is, for men, I think when they feel a bit nervous or scared about getting close, I think a lot of times the men's bravado comes up. So they basically put on a brave face and pretending it's okay. But inside, it's like the timid little boy is still feeling uncertain. So, we talked about this before about, when all else fails, try honesty. Is being honest with yourself. And if you're not being clean in your communication with this new prospect, this first date, because you're holding back because you're protecting yourself, or you're defending yourself, or you're just feeling unsafe, that isn't a good way to start. So the thing about getting close, there's joy in getting close. There's wonder in it. We talked about this in other episodes about intimacy and the joy of that, the wonder of that. If that's what you want, then what's in the way isn't going to help you. So do the work.
This is another one of the things I so admired about my late husband, that pretty quickly he told me that he'd been divorced twice. And he was really clear about why. And he explained it was all his doing. It wasn't, but I really admired that he said that. Right. And it was like, can I handle that or not? And he liked me a lot, but if I couldn't handle that, that wouldn't be good. And then not too long after that, he told me about his heart condition, and that could have sent me packing too. But he was okay about it, and he was treating it, and he was really in really good shape. And he happened to have somebody who thinks medical stuff is kind of fascinating. So I just had lots of questions about it and got to visit with his doctor. So, but if you're okay with who you are, that's the big foundation that will keep you from being scared about sharing who you are and hearing who the other person is. And then each incremental step as getting closer, you can go, oh, is it a problem? No, it's okay. Is that a problem? No, it's okay. And it's not false, it's okay. It's you really have checked it out. Because the two guys I'm coaching with now have had really challenging health problems, and they're in really good shape now. But it's a fascinating conversation to teach them how to get fine about saying it. And this is how you say it. Not the very first time you meet people, certainly not even the second time, but certainly as you go through, and then gauge who are they and how do they respond to that? Because this is really a part of you. I mean, one of them had a liver transplant, and that's a really, I've known two other people, and it's really an incredible thing to go through. And he's running and exercise. I mean, it's quite incredible. And it's really what can happen. You can really come out of it feeling certainly way better than you did feel, but important to be honoring of who you are and okay with it, and say it to the other person and see how they are.
Indeed.
Yeah.
We've covered a lot in this show today.
Don't you think?
Yeah,
We always have very full shows, I think.
we do.
It's a well-rounded meal. We have all the food groups.
Absolutely.
And I didn't even bring up sex one time. It's kind of
Oh,
shocking.
damn.
I'm off my game. So at least I said the word.
Right. Okay. No, we can
If
close
you
the
want
show.
to talk about getting scared while you're getting close, or sex, you can talk to Barry.
Nicely done.
Thank you. So the way to get a hold of me is through my website, which is www.theperfectcatch.com. And you click on my questionnaire. Actually, I looked today and it was changed. So now you click on my questionnaire to schedule a free conversation with me. And then you can also join my mailing list, and that will get you repeats of my podcast and updates on what I'm doing in my life. If you scroll to the bottom of my homepage, did I even say it? It's www.theperfectcatch.com. That's my website where you can go get the questionnaire. And if you scroll to the bottom of the homepage, I am in rare form today. It must be the hat. You scroll to the bottom, you'll get all my social media icons. So you can click on Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube and Pinterest and Twitter and Instagram. And you can also send me a personal email at Christine@theperfectcatch.com and tell people how they can get a hold of you, Mr. Barry.
I love it. So where you can find out more about me is go to my website, which is barryselby.com, my name, which makes it easy. By the way, I've seen a sneak preview of my new site. It's going to be awesome. I've got to sign up for a couple of things, a couple of tweaks going on, but she'll be out live very soon. It's been a long road to get here, but we're now just polishing it, making it perfect. So little things. Anyway, so go to barryselby.com. Even now my site does work, even though it's not the new one yet. And at the top of the screen, there's an option to sign up for a discovery session with me. Click on the button there that gets you to my calendar, and also a form you fill out. And that'll give us a chance to have a 20-minute conversation where we can see where you are and what you're looking for and if I can help you. At the bottom of the screen, there is an option to join my email list where you can go to, my quiz up already. We'll get to that in a second. But at the bottom of my screen, there is a chance to get on my email list where you get replays of the show and everything else I do. I also have a quiz, which was just up on the screen, which is barryselby.com/quiz. And what that quiz is your relationship readiness assessment. It's a chance for you to discover where you are on your path and how good, bad, or indifferent you are about relationships going forward. And frankly, if you do the quiz, it'll give you a lot of clarity, a lot of guidance. And then if you want to, there are links in there where you can go and set up a discovery session with me as well. Social media wise, it's my name on everything except Instagram and Threads, which is the real Barry Selby. That's because my name got hacked. That account got hacked before, so it's the real Barry Selby. But everywhere else, like YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, X, Pinterest, etc., is Barry Selby. And if you want to send me an email, you can just send me one at barry@barryselby.com. And I think that covers everything.
And you can watch us live every week on Thursday at 1 o'clock Pacific and 4 o'clock Eastern and all the times in between. And then you can also watch us on Roku and Apple TV. And then you can also listen to us and take us shopping or working out or in your car. I've had people telling me they're listening to our podcast in their cars on Spotify and Apple.
Yeah. That's it, I think.
Yep. Tied it up with a little bow.
Bottom line is tune in, listen in, and learn some things and take them with you, and then explore dating.
And share it with your friends and subscribe and like while you're there watching our podcast or listening to our podcast.
There you go.
Thank you so much. See you next week.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.